everything that being an American means. It is that imperative of citizenship that brings us here today. The post-presidency is usually a relaxing time for a president. You get to settle down a bit, write your memoirs, maybe sign a Netflix deal. That's what most presidents do, but of course, what most presidents do has never described Donald J. Trump. People who love Donald Trump and people who don't all agree on one thing. He makes history, and he's making history again today, as you'll hear from him shortly.
He's making history. Hey,
But
what's
the president
going
would
on?
agree with me when I say
Nice
that
to see you.
focusing on
Happy
him today misses
hump
the
day
point.
to you.
Back during
Listening
his
to this
presidency,
loser.
I remember him saying more than once that
Or
in reality,
the loser's
they're
making
not
an
really
announcement
after me.
about something.
They're after you and the America we know and love, and I am just standing in the way. There's no topic on which they, the elites, the big firms, the progressives, the office holders, and the bureaucrats, there is no other topic that they are seeing as a bigger obstacle to achieve their ambitions than the First Amendment. The First Amendment, the bulwark of our liberties, is what enables us as citizens to resist them at every turn.
Big tech.
The First Amendment truly stands between them and us.
It almost looks like
When they
he's
try to
at
tell us
a,
what to read, the
at
First
the White
Amendment
House. That's the
gets
crazy
in
part.
their way.
I don't know how
When
it
they try
works.
to
If I
tell
can
us what
show
to
you,
think,
last
the
time
First
I got
Amendment
hit. So
gets in their way.
hopefully I won't
When
get
they
hit
try to
this
tell
time.
us what to believe, the First Amendment gets in their way. And when they try to tell us with whom to worship, with whom to associate, with whom to congregate, and with whom to be friends, the First Amendment gets in their way. It's no surprise then that they want the First Amendment gone. They don't advocate for abolition, of course. They know better than that. But they do advocate for curtailing it into meaninglessness. Nowhere is that more evident than in the suppression of First Amendment rights online. In just a minute, the president will talk about this and what he intends to do about it. It's enough for me to say this. What was just a decade back a mere fiction of paranoid dystopia, a handful of technology companies effectively seizing control of the American public square, is now our own present reality. Against them, this president fights for you, as he always has and as he always will. Ultimately, the issue at hand is the same issue that has gripped the nation since the day almost exactly 6 years ago when Donald Trump made his famous escalator ride into history, becoming candidate Trump and then nominee Trump and then President Trump. The issue is simply this. It was then, it is today. Who rules in America? Is it a handful of unaccountable and unelected elites who concoct and enforce standards arbitrarily? If so, we should pack up the American experiment, call the American dream done, issue aristocratic titles, and be done with the charade.
What?
Or are the rulers of this country still the people? The democratic citizenry, the men and women who do honest work every single day and ask only
This is so
for a
patriotic.
fair and equitable treatment in return.
Figure.
We need that answer. This country just finished an
Got on all the
Independence
red,
Day
white, and blue.
celebration
It is
where we talked about and celebrated
classic.
everything we have been and everything we have meant as a country. For the sake of future Independence Days, for the sake of future American generations, we must fight for the people's rule. That's what Donald Trump is here to do, and that's what he's always done. Please help me welcome President Donald J. Trump.
Thank you very much, Brooke. I appreciate that. Thank you, everybody. I just want to say that I stand before you this morning to announce a very important and very beautiful, I think, development for our freedom and our freedom of speech. And that goes to all Americans. Today, in conjunction with the America First Policy Institute, I'm filing as the lead class representative a major class action lawsuit against the big tech giants, including Facebook, Google, and Twitter, as well as their CEOs, Mark Zuckerberg, Sundar Pichai, and Jack Dorsey. Real nice guys. We're asking the
Like
U.S.
Candace all the time.
District Court for the Southern District of Florida to order an immediate halt to social media companies' illegal, shameful censorship of the American people, and that's exactly what they are doing. We're demanding an end to the shadow banning, a stop to the silencing, and a stop
Hit that
to
like
the
button for me.
blacklisting,
Subscribe.
banishing, and canceling that you know so well. Our case
So they just gonna get
will
rid
prove
of
this
Facebook.
censorship
That's
is
what I would do.
unlawful,
Shut it
it's
down. Shut down
unconstitutional, and it's completely un-American.
Shut it
We all
down.
know that. We all know that very, very well. Our filing also seeks injunctive relief,
Got two
to
folks
allow
out here. Hey, how y'all doing?
restitution, and really restoration.
Ain't talking about nothing.
You can name about 20 other things that it has to be prompt because it's destroying our country. Of my accounts, in addition, we are asking the court to impose punitive damages on these social media giants.
It's a
We're
public
going
company.
to hold big tech very accountable. This is the first of numerous other lawsuits I assume that would follow, but this is the lead, and I think it's going to be a very, very important game changer for our country.
What?
It will be a pivotal battle in the defense of
No,
the First
it won't.
Amendment,
No,
and in the
it
end, I am
won't. No, it
confident that we
won't.
will achieve a historic victory for
He's lying.
American freedom, and at the same time,
How?
freedom of speech.
How? How? How does he think that can happen?
So I
Only
want to
the
thank
government
all of
can't
the
ban
exceptional
speech,
legal team
But everybody
behind
else
this
can.
effort. In particular, John Cole. We have a lot of the tobacco lawyers. You know, I said, who are the best lawyers? Well, the
Not the
tobacco lawyers. seem
the
to do a very good
tobacco
job.
lawyers?
Let's see if they want to do it, and they really wanted to do it. We have great, great talent. I also want to thank Brooke Rollins, just an outstanding person and friend. She's carrying it out to a level that nobody saw, and she's done it very quickly together with Linda McMahon, a tremendously successful
Linda
woman
McMahon
who
from
did an
wrestling?
incredible job in the administration, one of the best.
That's
And
Vince
everyone
McMahon's
at the
wife.
America First Policy Institute for their support of this vital initiative. From the very beginning of our nation, freedom of speech has always been understood as a bedrock of our liberty and our strength. In America, we recognize that the freedom to speak
Why did
our
you take
minds
the
and
glasses?
express the truth,
Lady just took
That
off
is
her
our
glasses real crazy. Like,
heart, really, that's really a big chunk of our heart. It is our heart. It is not granted to us by government, it's given to us by God, and no one should have the power to take that right away.
what? What? What?
The
Others-
founding fathers inscribed this right in the very First Amendment to our Constitution because they knew that free speech is essential to the prevention of horror and to the preservation of our republic. But remember the words, the prevention of horror, because we're very close to seeing that now in our country. We've never been in a position
We've always.
like this, and it's all happened very quickly. In the words of the father of our country, although some would like to take that title away from him, George Washington, he will not be canceled. If freedom of speech may be
$1
taken
bill, how
away,
could it be canceled?
then dumb and silent, we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. Pretty well known
Sleep.
phrase. It's so true. Unfortunately,
Well, hey,
today,
thank you for watching. I
this
appreciate that.
fundamental American right and liberty is under incredible threat and attack by a lot of different sides. But we are the majority side by a lot. I believe we are the majority side by far more than anybody would understand.
What?
You
What?
just have to take a look at what happened in recent elections and
Well, you
put up
lost.
the right numbers. You will see a
You
majority
lost.
like you wouldn't believe, because nobody can believe what some of the things that are being said are. Nobody believes that. Social media has given extraordinary power to a group of big tech giants that are working with government, the mainstream media, and a large segment of the political party to silence and suppress the views of the American people. And they've been very, very successful at that. Not in all cases, but in many cases, totally successful.
Get serious.
While the social media companies are officially private entities, in recent years they have ceased to be private with
No,
the
they're still private.
enactment and their historical use of Section 230, which profoundly protects them
What?
from liability. Once they got Section 230, they're not private companies anymore in a lot of views. No other companies in our country,
Oh my God.
and even in our country's history, have had protection like this. It's, in effect, a
Wait,
massive
No,
government
no
subsidy.
entity in the
These
country.
companies have been co-opted, coerced, and weaponized by government and by government actors to become the enforcers of illegal,
Enforces.
unconstitutional censorship. And that's what it is at the highest level, censorship, and so many other things that perhaps are even worse. And you'll be seeing that in this lawsuit as it wells its way through.
As it wells its
The
way.
courts.
What is the wells its way?
We have all
through?
seen
I
Democrats
guess
in
well.
Congress,
Okay, I get it. Well,
all the CEOs of these companies before their committees, and attempt to threaten them, bully them, and intimidate them
don't be talking
like
about
nobody has been intimidated. But they made a deal. They all get along very nicely now. Thank you very much. Congress has repeatedly told big tech that if they do not silence Democrats, political opponents, ban prominent conservative voices, I wonder who that would be, and restrict what the left ominously
Aren't the
labels
conservatives
as
like number one on
disinformation,
Facebook?
and they are the greatest disinformation group of people ever in the world.
Sad.
As an
Sad.
example, just recently, now they're saying, we never said defund the police, we want to fund the police. They looked at poll numbers at 85% against that. No, we want to take care of the police. No, they don't. They wanted to fund the police. And they'll say it thousands and thousands and thousands of times.
That's 3,000.
And by the end of 12 months, you'll all be saying, oh, they love the police. They don't love the police. They actually hate the
They
police.
hate them. What a
For whatever
passion.
reason. And it's just a terrible thing. And so many other things. They're changing their views on so many
Hating.
other things. And they just say the opposite. They don't even go to anything. They just roll in unison. A lot of the
That's what he's
people
doing.
sitting right before me understand exactly what I'm saying. They say it right before you, that we want to do this, we want to do that. It's the exact opposite of what they've been saying. Or,
So,
probably the most famous of all, Russia. Trump loves Russia. He loves Russia. He
he
loves
kind of
Putin.
does.
He
He
loves
keep bringing up Russia. Who
That
cares?
went on for 2 years, and some people believed it. But we are going to look so
Crowd's
closely.
not even enthused anymore.
We're
They
going
they
to
were
make
clapping
sure
at
that
first, but they're done now.
The liability protections that they have under Section 230 is at a very minimum changed and maybe at a maximum taken away.
Minimum.
The Supreme Court has made it exceedingly clear that Congress is not allowed to coerce private entities into doing what Congress does, and they're not allowed to do it. The lawful authority is just not there. They can't do
Is
it.
he?
They bully and they
He's not
coerce.
reading this. Off
Yet that's exactly what's taking place every single day. It's a flagrant violation of the Constitution going on before our very eyes. And I hate to say this, but they do it with the Supreme Court too. They play the refs. They talk about all sorts of things they're going to do to Supreme Court justices. We're going to impeach him. We're going to impeach him. We're going to impeach him.
Can impeach.
And then, lo and behold, all of a sudden, different decisions come out. Or We're going to enlarge that court to a level that nobody can believe. We are going to take that court and we're going to enlarge it. We're going to have 16. We're going to have 20. I saw one the other day. We're going to have 24 justices. And I guess things happen because all of a sudden decisions come out. They play the ref. They play the ref better than Bobby Knight has ever played the ref. Now we can't let that happen, and hopefully our Supreme Court justices and other judges and justices, they stand up for our values and they don't let that happen. In addition, in recent years, we have also seen increasing coordination between big tech giants and government agencies such as the Centers for Disease Control, where so much was wrong. So many things could have been different, but big tech happened to choose the wrong side and they banned the right side. For example, YouTube's policy explicitly forbids contradicting, quote, health authorities. You know the health authorities. Fortunately, I overrode the health authorities.
How's this about Bill?
A lot of good decisions made. If I didn't, we would have been in much bigger trouble. Like you see, other countries right now are still in very, very big trouble. Through such coordination, the federal government has essentially deputized social media platforms to become the de facto censorship arm of the U.S. government, which is exactly what's happened. This was especially clear during the pandemic when social media giants began censoring information according to guidance by the CDC, which, as we now know, was very often incorrect or wrong. This censorship is yet another blatant violation of the Constitution. There's so many vitions of our Constitution, and you'll see that in this, which will also be added to.
How many?
Things are happening
How
on a
many?
daily basis that will be added as
We
we
should
go
see the
along.
people behind it.
Consider just
They are
some of the
hilarious. Are you watching
information
this?
that has been
Hit the like
censored
button if you're
in
watching this.
America over the past year. Until recently, Facebook
Hit the like button.
had a policy to eliminate all posts sharing evidence that the horrible virus emerged from China. They said it didn't emerge from the Chinese lab. Wuhan, remember I said Wuhan, it was like a bomb went up. Wuhan came from the Wuhan lab. Of course, there were body bags all outside the lab. Nobody ever mentions that. I wonder
Some
why.
body bag.
They said it came 1,000 miles away from a bat, or it came from another country. They tried to blame Italy. They tried to blame us. But they gave that one up. That was also misinformation. But then it was finally revealed that this was most likely the truth, that it came from the lab. And it was a small little story.
What is it?
But when I said
How
it was
can
like
you be
a
with
weapon
this guy?
went off, a
What is
major
this guy
weapon.
talking
I won't
about?
use the word weapon, because I never use the word nuclear, but we have to be careful with
Don't
the
do-
leadership because
don't-
we don't have the proper leadership.
Stop.
We're in a very perilous
Stop.
state. So we don't
Stop.
use the word nuclear. I
Just
never
stop.
use it.
Don't
okay?
do it.
Never use it.
Don't
I
do
never
it.
said it.
Don't. Not
It's
that you
called
just didn't say it.
disinformation.
Not that you
Google
just.
and YouTube have deleted countless videos that dared to question the judgment of the World Health Organization, which has been wrong so often. It's been a really pipe organ for China, as most of you know.
Pipe.
Calling those videos misinformation, including videos that
Pipe organ.
consist of clear scientific fact. Doctors and medical groups have been barred from these platforms for posting about therapeutics such as hydroxychloroquine. That's a familiar name. Which now, most recent studies say, is effective in combating the virus. 3 cents a pill. The drug companies don't like 3 cents a pill. 3 cents a pill is what it costs. But recent studies have come out very strongly in favor. Twitter has censored
What?
users simply for using the term illegal alien, which it has labeled as hateful content,
It's their platform.
and just taking you off for whatever reason.
It's their platform. Just like you can
You
kick
have to
somebody
see
out
the
your
sentence
building.
they took
Their
me off
platform.
for. It's the most loving sentence. It's really amazing. They could have done better because I've had a lot worse. I mean, I couldn't believe that was the reason. Take a look at it. You know exactly the sentence I'm talking about. It's become very famous. People are saying, really? Even the other side said, really? And of course, there is no better evidence that big tech is out of control than the fact that they banned the sitting president of the United States earlier this year, a ban that continues to this day.
Joe Biden?
Continues.
He said the sitting president. He said the sitting
Not a
president.
fair situation. Very, very bad for this country. Very bad for the world.
He said the sitting.
If they can do it
He's
to
not
me,
the-
they can do it to
he
anyone.
said the- he
And in
just said
fact,
the-
that is exactly what they're doing. They're taking
sitting
people off who
president.
don't even realize they were taken off. They have no idea why they were taken off.
Why are they taking them
But
off?
what they're doing is incredible and
Amazing.
incredibly dangerous. Joining us this morning are just a few of the many Americans who have been illegally banned or silenced.
You can't be
under the
illegally banned from.
corrupt regime of censorship. These brave patriots are included in the lawsuit, and thousands more are joining as we speak. Thousands more. They're all wanting to join. This will be, I think, will go down as the biggest class action ever filed.
Ever?
There's thousands of people want to join. Jen Horton is a school teacher from Fenton, Michigan. Earlier this year, she was kicked off Facebook for sharing a post questioning whether young children should be required to wear masks. She had a question, giving both sides and actually not negative, just giving both sides. That was enough. At the same time, as Jen was deplatformed, her brother had gone missing, and she was unable to get the word out to all of her followers. She had a lot of followers, could not get the word out. And Jen, I want to thank you very much for being here and
I
stepping
don't know what
forward.
he's talking about anymore.
Takes a lot of courage. Would you like to come up and say something, Jen?
Sure.
Where's Jen? Jen, please. Thank you.
I just appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of these amazing patriots, and I thank you, President Trump, for everything you're doing for us.
Thank you, Jen, very much. I appreciate it.
What is he actually doing, dude?
Thank you, Jen.
What is this dude doing, man?
Dr. Kelly Victory, I love that name. I would have gone with that name if I had the choice. Is a board certified trauma and emergency specialist from Colorado. Great person.
Shut
Who was
up.
asked
I
by
just do it. Don't worry
the
about it.
pastor of a church to prepare a video about how to mitigate risks of the China virus to allow church services to
He's back.
safely resume. Just a question. Could you give us some information? The video was outrageously removed from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube with horrible statements being made by them.
He said outrageously
Kelly,
reviewed.
thank you for your
Good. That's a good
just a few
adjective.
words.
Outrageously.
Facebook delayed the flight. The flight's delayed by 4 hours. I wonder. I can't believe that. That's terrible. What
Wah,
they're doing.
wah,
All right.
wah.
Thank you anywhere. Here he is landing, going into Newark. Kelly Cajon and Bobby Michael are angel
Cajon?
parents. Their precious son, Brandon, was killed at just 21 years of age by a twice deported and very violent
Illegal alien.
illegal alien. He caused a very fatal collision. Something should have never happened. Since then, they have heroically launched their own deeply personal fight to draw attention to the dangers of illegal immigration. They helped push through Florida's ban on deadly
Come on for it.
sanctuary cities, and they are indeed deadly. And they continue to be strong advocates for border security and immigration enforcement. But they have been cruelly and unfairly banned from Twitter. Would you like to say a few words? What are you? Would you please?
Thank you, Mr. President. The fight for citizenship must continue. We are in this. We will not allow our nation to be silenced. We stand together, and we thank you, Mr. President.
Former. Not the
I see
president.
somebody running for office very soon. That was great. Well, I want to thank you very much. It's really terrific. So
Say words with
we're in a
passion.
fight.
Ready
we're in a fight that we're going to win.
Is that all you have to
We're in a
do?
fight that people
With
want
vigor,
us to take on. So many
belief.
people have said to me, please, sir, do something about big tech. Sue them, sir, sue them. And they've been saying it to me for a long time, but there has never been a better time to do it. Polling released by Scott Rasmussen, highly respected, shows that nearly 2/3 of Americans believe big tech companies should be required to abide by the First Amendment guarantee of free speech. And I think those numbers are low, very low. 68% of Americans believe social media companies should prioritize their fair treatment of every citizen over
Oh my God.
protecting themselves.
It's their company. Why would they
want
protect
people to
themselves?
protect it. They want people to have their voice. And an overwhelming majority
Start
believe
your
that
own.
tech giants have become too powerful. They've crossed the line many, many times, and by far too much. The American people's birthright of freedom must prevail against big tech and other forces that seek to
Birthright
destroy
of
it.
freedom.
Through this lawsuit, we are standing up for American democracy by standing up for free speech rights of every American, Democrat, Republican, independent, whoever it may be. This lawsuit is just the beginning. It's a very big suit with great lawyers. I'll let you know about that in about a year from now.
A year?
Change my mind,
A year?
but I don't think so. They've had a tremendous track record in doing good. We'll also take this battle to the state legislatures, to Congress, and ultimately to the ballot box. And it will be a very popular one at the ballot box. I will never stop fighting to defend
How are you gonna take that to the
constitutional
ballot
rights
box?
and sacred liberties of the American people. I will never stop. I will now ask John Cole and Pam Bondi, two terrific people that love our country so much, to step forward and discuss the suit. And then we'll take a few questions. Thank you very much.
Ooh, question.
Hello. He's taller than me. This suit is really about freedom of speech. And what it is, it's basic that freedom of speech depends on certain things. One is who decides what's hate, who decides what's misinformation. It's not a couple guys out in California. It's always been the Supreme Court for over 200 years, and I would say they've done a heck of a job. We're taking this suit. We're going to prove that they are government actors. Therefore, the First Amendment does apply. And we think we will be.
I wonder if we could do those with churches.
We think that we're in the right area, which is Southern Florida.
It wouldn't be fair.
You have to understand that we can't let this happen because, you know, for all you out there who are Democrats and liberals or whatever you are, you're next. Now it's the conservatives, but as history shows us, it will turn maybe 5 years from now, maybe 3 months from now, maybe 10 years, but you're next. So I would urge people from the other side of President Trump's political party to join us.
No.
We can't have this going on. And one last thing. The most hated thing by all the Supreme Courts over all the years is called prior restraint. That means that you can't speak. Pentagon Papers is the famous case. You can't do this because we say so. So the Supreme Court hates this. They think it's the worst kind of censorship we have. And when this gentleman cannot go on and say what he wants to say, that's prior restraint every minute of every day until this thing gets resolved.
Funny, they
Thank
say
you.
he can't say what he want to say at a press conference.
And I'm here not as part of that great legal team over there, but I'm very proud to be part of America First Policy Constitutional Litigation Team. So I was here just to
So she's not
explain
doing anything.
just a few things. And you know what John said, this is about our Constitution. This isn't just for conservatives. This is for our media. This is for everyone out there about censorship. This is for Democrats and even progressives whose speech should be protected under the First Amendment. If you recall, Tulsi Gabbard, she sued. Do you remember that? Tulsi Gabbard was censored when she was running for president. And so she sued. And, you know, people say that they have immunity, they meaning YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, under Section 230. Well, here's where
Go
that's
YouTube.
changed. Section 230 came about in 1996, and it was an offshoot of the Decency Act to protect against children being exploited online. That's what this was all about. So take it back to 96. How many users were there then? Probably about 20 million on AOL, right, President? 1996. Now, what do we have? Facebook, Twitter.
Not the president.
We have billions worldwide. So times have changed. The internet is flourishing, but First Amendment still must be protected. No one could envision what was about to happen with the internet in our country now, with billions of users worldwide. So that's why this is so important.
Police the
And
whole
when you have
world,
Mark Zuckerberg and others being called in front of Congress and being coerced and being questioned by all these congressmen, then you also have Mark Zuckerberg emailing with Dr. Fauci about COVID. And in fact, a lot of their emails that we received have been redacted, not just because of phone numbers, but because they were trading trade secrets, things that they were. So a private company is communicating with the federal government, and parts of that were redacted. So that makes them, they're not immune anymore.
They're not
immune
immune
It was
anymore.
coercion, collusion, working together, and they cannot hide from the First Amendment. That's why this is so very, very important. Even Facebook's oversight board that Mark Zuckerberg created, the oversight board came back and said there were problems, and it lacked consistently being applied to everyone by community standards. So that's why this is so important for us, for our future, for all political parties, for all human beings around the world. We believe in the First Amendment, and America First Policy will fight for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. You know, a lot of people ask me about Dr. Fauci. I like Dr. Fauci.
He loves Dr. Fauci.
But they said, why didn't you fire him? I said, no, he was good. He'd recommend something, I'd do the opposite, and we always turned out to be right. Sir, don't close the borders to China. We close them very early. Get no credit for anything, but these are minor details. Any questions, Christina? Yes. I chose you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, sir. So what is the possibility of a settlement prior to trial? Because obviously any court ruling in your favor, and you've laid out a very compelling case, anything prior to a court ruling would certainly limit the rest, everybody else who's not in the class.
We're not looking for a settlement. We don't expect a settlement. They fight, and they fight hard. They've never had anything like this, and they've never had a team of very attractive-looking people in every way. Look at that. That's quite a legal team. That's like from a picture. But they are a very effective, much more importantly, legal team. So we're not looking to settle. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're not looking to settle. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
President. So we were talking about privately held companies that have been censoring. What's your position on public broadcasting, NPR, who also seem to be filling the same kind of role for?
It's such a great question. They are terrible. They are terrible. And it's not only what they say, it's what they don't say. For instance, I was informed
They are terrible.
there are record
Absolutely
numbers of
terrible.
murders took place this weekend. Record numbers. They don't even talk about it on NBC and CBS and ABC and NPR. They don't talk about it, and it's a big story. That's why the credibility of the mainstream media is the lowest it's ever been. Lowest it's ever been. And you know, I hate to take credit for this, but I'm very proud of the fact that I exposed them for what they are. They are terrible, terrible representatives of our country. They don't talk about crime. They don't talk about Chicago where you had 260 people shot this weekend. That's in Afghanistan. We didn't lose one soldier in the last more than a year. And I will say that was largely because of me, but I won't
Gotta
take
check.
credit.
I gotta
The
check
good
that
news
one.
is I will never be given credit either. But we haven't lost a soldier. Think of it, 260 people shot in Chicago, massive numbers of people shot in New York. And they don't prosecute these people. These are killers. They don't prosecute these people. They have no process. They only go after Republicans. It's a terrible thing that's happening in our country and a very dangerous and a very good question. Please, Rob.
He said they don't prosecute the killers. They only go after
How do you fight the
Republicans.
argument that these are
That's a
private
t-shirt.
companies? They can be as liberal as they want to be.
Well, they say that they're private, but they're no longer private. If they gave up their Section 230 liability protection, I would go along with them. I'd say they're private. We'll open up other privates, and other privates will be opened up. I mean, I know that for a fact
Privates
because
will
I'm
be
involved
open.
in that. But I will say that they have Section 230. It's a liability protection, the likes of which nobody in the history of our country has ever received, just a small group. And we're not going to stand for it. And that makes them, in my opinion, very subject to the kind of penalties that we're talking about, which is potentially, John, trillions of dollars. It's a number that the likes of which nobody's seen before. John, you might want to address that.
The Supreme Court over the years, especially recently, has been very clear what you can and can't do as a private company. And they've done it all. There's mainly three reasons. The president has talked about the immunity. There's also the coercion by the Congress, congressmen, congresswomen, and in the media and in testimony and in their tweets. And there's also the fact that this law, when this law was passed, Zuckerberg was in middle school, okay? It has served its purpose. It's now it has grown into this monster that Congress never intended. And the real bottom line is Congress cannot delegate what it can't do itself. And that's what they've done.
And, we were talking earlier about when 230 was created in 1996. And really, I believe one of the main reasons was something we all care deeply about, but as a former attorney general, getting the sex predators off instantly. Yet today, there are still, this may have come out during the congressional testimony, but there were over 16 million reports still of sex predators, of sex exploitation of children online, 45 million photos and videos that are allegedly still out there. That's what they need to be focusing on.
Whoa. Whoa.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the timing of this is perfect, especially going to the midterms and looking ahead to 2024. Can you share your thoughts on the timing of it and how this decision can help protect conservative viewpoints as we move further to 2024 elections?
The timing just seemed to be right because they've been so abusive, so bad, what they've done, not only to the President of the United States, but to so many others. Hamas has a site. The greatest killers in the world have a site. They're never reprimanded. They're never red flagged. Nothing ever happens. The president,
I'm looking at myself. Sorry about that. I'm just trying to say I look horrible.
These people call for the destruction of Israel, the destruction of the USA. Nothing happens to them. And I just think it's become so flagrant and so outrageous and outrageously ridiculous that this
outrageous.
Not having to do with the elections. I think this will go on beyond the elections. I would be surprised if it didn't. But I think it's a very important thing for our nation. Very, very important. Yeah, please, go ahead, please.
Just to clarify, who should be the arbiter of what's hate, what's offensive, what should not be published, what goes beyond free speech? And because so much of this, your banning has to do with comments you made around January 6th, just to clarify further, what did you do to stop the insurrection, as some people call it, and why were you not able to stop it?
Oh.
Event, unfortunate event, just
Good
went through
question.
Congress and a report was issued and my name wasn't even mentioned. And I appreciate that. I was surprised, frankly, because I would have assumed that they would have come up with their typically biased, at least on the Democrat side, statement. The report came out, as you saw, 2 weeks ago. My name wasn't even mentioned. That was an unfortunate event. I say, though, however, people are being treated unbelievably unfairly. When you look at people in prison and nothing happens to Antifa, and they burned down cities and killed people. There were no guns in the Capitol. They burned, except for the gun they shot Ashley Babbitt. And nobody knows who that man were. If that were the opposite way, that man would be all over. He would be the most well-known, and I believe
This is a good question.
because I believe I know exactly who it is. But he would be the most well-known person in this country, in the world. But the person that shot Ashley Babbitt, boom, right through the head, just boom. There was no reason for
Head.
that. And why
They
isn't
say the
that
head.
person being opened up, and why isn't that being studied? They've already written it off. They said that case is closed. If that were the opposite, that case would be going on for years and years, and it would not be pretty. So I just thought this was a very important time. Yeah, please, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Twitter, if you're successful in this, and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all the social media platforms let you back on and let everyone else back on uninhibited the way that everyone's supposed to have access, would you use their platforms again?
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. I might not. You know, I'm in a different position because if I put out a press release, you know, I'm getting extremely good pickup. But that's me. The world, everybody that's getting banned they can't put out a press release. People would say, who the hell is that? Nobody's going to pick it up. And even myself, I could instantaneously get the word out. If somebody says a lie, like the fake media, I can at least give the opposing side, which I've been doing for 6 years. I used to get great publicity before I ran for office, okay? I've been doing this for 5 or 6 years where I can get a word out, an opposing word. Today, you can't do that. They took away the rights of, in my opinion, the majority. I really believe it's the majority because people aren't for all of these things. Now they have voter ID. That's another one. When you talk about voter ID, all of a sudden they love voter ID. They fought it vehemently. I noticed 2 days ago, I watched a congressman, happened to be from South Carolina, say, no, I've always been in favor of voter ID. Well, he hasn't because you look at his statement for the last 2 years. He's been vehemently opposed. But now they lie like nobody has ever lied. I watched him say, I've always believed in voter ID, essentially. And I said, that's unbelievable. Fortunately, the particular newscast had his statements from before, of which they were too numerous to put up, but they put up enough of them. But the Democrats are now saying, because they saw it was an 88% positive issue, they're now saying, we believe in voter ID. We have to have voter ID.
What?
There isn't one Democrat in the country that said that. And in a year from now, the fake news will say they've always been on this side. It's amazing. If you say it long enough,